they get donations, but they don't necessarily pass out food. They just sit there and they bombard Congress with letter after letter. Like they have like a week where they get together and they just write. They get as many people to write as many letters as they can over and over and over again to Congress, kind of pressuring them to change policies. But I don't know what the policies would be. Would the policies be to help fix food shelters or to get more food stamps? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what.
Food stamps. Now you're talking about welfare.
Yeah.
So, do you believe in welfare? Do you support welfare?
I have family that's on food stamps. I'm okay with it, but it pisses me off because they'll call us up and be like, "Hey, we can only get whole milk. We don't drink whole milk. Do you want it?" Like, I don't know. Like, if you're in such desperate need for food stamps,
you don't have the right to be picky.
Yeah, you don't have the right to be picky. So
I think
I don't feel bad for you.
Tying back to the text that we read, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, I see welfare as what was the word, like where the oppressed acts like it's giving, or where the oppressors act like they're
false
giving
charity.
False charity. I see welfare as false charity
Yeah,
because it's such an easily abused system.
I still don't know how I feel about false charity because I feel like it's not necessarily that bad. Like, yeah, you might have self-interest, but I mean, if they're getting food, then do you kind of know what I mean? Like, they're still getting some good is still being done, regardless whether you're self-interest.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to have one single purpose either. I mean, yeah, it could be for self-interest, but it could also be to help somebody.
Yeah, like, okay, example, we went to the food bank. Did we really go to the food bank because we wanted to go? No. We went because it was kind of a requirement for the honors program. Self-interest. To keep us in good standing with the honors program. You know what I mean? But yet still, like, good was still done. We still pulled those weeds in the garden. So is self-interest and false charity really that bad? I don't think so.
I think self-interest is so ingrained in our culture, that trying to fight it would be trying to go against, like, the proponents of which our society was based upon, you know?
I agree. I think it started very, very, very early with colonization, and then especially when capitalism just took off. Like, oh my God. Like, now, there's no getting rid of it now.
No. It's way too enmeshed for us to try and fix these problems as far as, like, America goes. That's why I think there needs to be a restructuring of the welfare system, or if not, just a complete toss-out of the welfare system and an implementation of a more effective system that isn't handicapping people under the poverty line and isn't allowing them to abuse the system as effectively. I don't know what you would replace the welfare system with, but I think it was a big slap in the face from the conservative to anybody else.
Yeah. Okay, you know how what I want to talk about is being desensitized to hunger. Like, okay, we don't really, like, honestly, we don't really think about it because we were always around food, at least us, you know what I mean? But, okay, so, I remember, like, you see people on the streets and you're just like, you know, whatever, like, you're really not going to even use that for food. Like, do you know what I mean? You're kind of just like, oh, they're not hungry, they just want drugs or something. So, you know what I mean?
So now you're talking about stigma.
Okay, well, I'll tell you this. I don't know, like a few years ago, it was Thanksgiving Day, there's a man outside of a grocery store begging for a turkey dinner. So what does my dad do? He goes in, drops like, I don't know, $100-something, buys him turkey, buys him everything, gives it to the man, and the man's like, can I have the receipt so I can take this all back? Like, I just want the money. So it's people like that that make me not want to give.
But that's a stereotype that's created in your mind based on this one.
Yeah, but how true is it? A lot of people on the streets, how many of them really want food? They want money for cigarettes. They want money for alcohol.
I mean, I understand that stereotypes apply sometimes. That's what makes them stereotypes, is that sometimes they do occur and they're just so, you know, ridiculous.
I think it's more than sometimes. That's
but
why
it happens enough. You shouldn't. But you're still talking about, you know, all the other. What about all the other people who aren't, you know, returning those
and I'm okay
dinners?
with that. But I feel like maybe our resources should go towards food shelters where people come there for food and sleep. Do you know what I mean? If the only option for them is to get food, I think all the beggars on the street should be gone. And if you're really that desperate and want that much food, then there should be food shelters available for you.
There should be, but there aren't.
Well, then that's the issue.
Well, if all the money being handed out to beggars gets transferred over to establishing more like soup kitchens or something like that, then
Yeah. Like, I have no problem with soup kitchens. No problem whatsoever. I have a problem with people sitting there begging on the streets, trying to look all sorry for food when I feel like the majority of them are going to use the money for other things.
But then now you're talking about having to educate people about soup kitchens and resources that they can access. Not everybody knows about it, you know? Like you have veteran, you have
that needs to be done.
Yeah, but it's not that easy to just educate a huge group of people. Like the homeless population is massive. In social work, one of the big issues is the amount of homeless veterans from the Vietnamese War and wars following.
That upsets me so much.
Of course it upsets you, but you have to realize veterans who were in the Vietnamese War are likely to be addicted to methadone or other sorts of drugs that they were treated with following their, return from Vietnam due to Agent Orange and stuff like that. They're living on the streets. They have no idea that there are resources out there available to them. And when they do find out about them, there's no guarantee that they're going to be helped. Like, they have to meet a strict criteria, and there's a quota that has to be met. Can't be overpassed because there's just not enough funding.
Well, then it's policy reform.
It's not just policy reform, it's also about interests of society as a whole. Society as a whole is not interested in this, and it's not a requirement for people in America to have to give money to charities like this.
Do you think we're not interested in it solely because of self-interest? Do you think there's something else going on?
No, I think people are selfish.
I think it's a mixture of self-interest and ignorance.
So you're saying we have to educate the public, which I don't think is actually as difficult as you say it is, because we do it. Say for example, we do it every 4 years. I mean, a lot of times issues within elections are brought up that we just don't understand or we don't know about. Yet, by the end of maybe about 6 to 8 months, everybody's talking about it.
I know that educating the public isn't difficult, but educating those on the street that we're actually trying to help.
Just because you educate someone doesn't mean something's going to be done.
And that ties into dialogue as well as action. You can't have praxis without, you can't just tell somebody, and then it ties into communication, like with Rules for Radicals. You have to be able to communicate with these people from their own local experience.
I don't know if education, I think you'd have to start at an early age. I think people are so just in all for themselves, only helping. I think there's honestly really few people out there who care about others.
But
and are willing to do something.
Well, what about the way we were raised? I'm sure we weren't raised being told that you need to care only about yourself. I'm sure none of us have ever heard that.
No,
but look where we're at.
But what do we do to help others? Like every Christmas, my family, we donate toys to Blue Santa or Brown Santa. Like we do that, but that's once a year. I mean, we donate some clothes, every couple of months. But I
know that's exactly what my point is. My point is that we're told not to be selfish, yet we still are.
And it's hard not to be.
Yeah.
It's hard not to be in the society in which we live. It's all about competition here, and we're all competing for the same limited resources. Mm-hmm. It's hard not to have your own self-interest in mind, and if you're going to reach out to others, you're sacrificing some of your own self-interest. Which with the economy in the state that it is today.
That's hard. No, I know. So I don't know if an issue, I don't think hunger is ever going to get solved. I think there's always going to be hungry people out there. I think it can be limited.
But you have to have a blurred vision of a better world. I don't know. Socialist Party rules.
When you think of hunger, do you really think of people in the United States? Because I think of kids in Africa. Do you know what I mean? When I think of the hungry people, I think of the kids you see on TV. 20 cents a day.
Right.
Save somebody. I don't think people in the United States are really acknowledge how many hungry people we actually have.
I think of both. Well, now I think of both. Probably 2 years ago, I wouldn't have. Because, say for example, the bridge is right down the street.
Yeah.
We could literally just go maybe about a mile and a half, and there it is. It's right in our face.
A lot of hungry people.
Yeah.
Where are you from? Where are you from? I don't know where you're from.
I'm from the north side.
You're from the north side now.
Yeah, see, exactly. Exactly.
For 16 years, I was in a small country town where everyone knew everybody, and then I moved to a really pretty wealthy town in Flower Mound where all the kids drove Jaguars and Hummers and BMWs to school, and it's known as one of the wealthiest towns around. So we didn't see any of this. But I mean, like, it's not that